for the last cycle, the grant cycle 6, that was from 2021 to 2023. So 3 years, we spent 14 billion. Of this 14 billion, 4.6 was used through this PPM and, of course, the external auditors, but this is really a minimal amount, only 4 million. And, of course, the fiscal agent has 32 million. This is a minimal, but the bigger chunk of this 4.6 went to the PPM, where we are mainly procuring the health commodities, the drugs, the ARVs for HIV, and so on, because we are getting economies of scale. In some cases also, as I just said, we are using UNDP, UNOPS, and UNICEF, especially UNOPS and UNDP, because they are used to this kind of development projects, especially when it comes to the procurement of vehicles, for instance. Also, it's not always the case. For the procurement of vehicles, whenever it's possible, we heavily rely on country system, because we take into account the delivery lead time, because if we procure most of these items through UNOPS, in most cases we have lower prices, but then the delivery is an issue, because their headquarters, if I'm not mistaken, are based in Copenhagen, and in most cases they are also procuring from India or from even or other countries in Asia or in Europe, and then it takes time to get those heavy commodities in country, which, in some cases is a bit contradictory with the efficiencies that we are trying to get. And then of this 14 billion, we had 7.5 that was directed through the government PR. So again, just to strengthen and to reinforce the message that I was transmitting in the beginning. And our end goal, of course, is to send, whenever possible, the vast majority of the funding through the government PR, because we are heavily relying on country systems. Give you maybe just to differentiate again the funding, because we are funding in Latin America, in Asia, in Africa, and also in Eastern Europe. But then, because here we are talking about Africa, of the 14 billion that I've just mentioned, 10.5 were directed to Africa. Needless to mention that from our side, 72%, to be precise, of our funding, of the World Fund funding, is really directed through the continent. Yeah. But just wanted to give you an idea of the funding landscape, so that you also have a better understanding of our model. So this is just a summary of PFM, the way we implement it at the World Fund in general, but also really heavily relying on country system, also on the way we could help modernize the budgeting in country with the cycle that we are having here, also insisting on efficiencies and fiscal discipline. As I said in the beginning, we are functioning in a 3-year cycle, and at the end of the cycle, any funding not spent will be returned to the pool. So basically, it will be sent back to the global fund. This is really very, very unfortunate for most countries, because we have some cases where the in-country absorption for some countries is not optimal. We are talking about an absorption of around 60%, so meaning that 40% of the funding, and again, it is not a loan, it's a grant, are not implemented in country and then sent back to the global fund. Or in most cases, what we do also is portfolio optimization, because we anticipate in the middle of the implementation, when we anticipate that some countries are really struggling to use their full allocation. Of course, we try to help them as much as possible so that they can implement. But then when we know that anyway, because the planning was not done adequately from the beginning, they won't be implementing the full funding, we anticipate and then look for some other countries where we have a funding gap, and where also we have sufficient elements that confirm that they are in a position to implement those any additional funding very efficiently, so that we allocate them to those countries. So that's why whenever I mention that the fund is returning back to the Global Fund, it's not necessarily coming back to us. It's actually going back to other countries that are more efficient and so on. So this is also why I'm insisting on the fiscal discipline. So whenever we are also relying on country system, because we think that with the help of the Accountant General, with the Ministry of Finance, with the Ministry of Budget, they know what are, in most cases, the bottlenecks. And then they can also have some mitigating measures to make sure that whatever funding is allocated is going to be spent very efficiently. Also, to give you some ideas, when I joined the group around 8 years back, the overall in-country absorption for the Africa region was around 65%. But honestly, I think that we have done amazing work. When I say we, it's the countries in Africa in general, because if I take as a reference the GC6 that just ended in December 2023, the in-country absorption for the Africa region was 90%, which is really amazing. But at the same time, 90% over a 10 billion budget, we are still leaving 1 billion on the table, which is again another missed opportunity, because we know that the need is there, so we have some funding gap and so on. So I'm really insisting on this. So I quickly touch on the co-financing part, but just again bringing it again, and also why we think that it's really important to heavily rely on this, in particular the Ministry of Budget. As I said, the co-financing requirement is really a requirement from our side to ensure that for a single country, they contribute, for example, when we give 100, they give 15 on the table. But then the difficulty with it in some countries is for them to justify that they have put 15 on the table, simply because they may struggle to track their expenses, because from our side also we want those expenditure to be really centralized in the fight against these three diseases, so HIV, malaria, or TB. And then relying on country system and also working hand in hand with the Ministry of Budget, Finance, with Accountant General, I think that we could easily track these expenditure. And also to confess that from our side, in the past, we were not necessarily doing that, but now we are fully aware that this is really the route to go, and we are now engaging. And myself, I'm really encouraging all my finance specialists, whenever they go on mission in country, to have at least a meeting, if not with the Accountant General, at least with the team of the Accountant General, so that we can benefit from their expertise in country. And when it comes to co-financing a requirement, it will no longer be an issue. And also why I'm insisting on this, because if a country does not meet the co-financing requirement, it means that from our side, we'll also return the same amount from the funding. And even in some cases, we will deduct double this amount. So for instance, if I take again this example of an allocation of 100 million, the country is supposed to give 15 million. If then they don't meet their co-financing requirement, we could deduct up to 30 million, which is again another really missed opportunity, knowing the gap that we have in the region, and also the funding gap that we have in country for most cases. Yes, this is the last slide. Perfectly on time. So just wanted again to confirm and to summarize on the route that we are going, leveraging on a country system budget, and I think it's in line with the subject of trying really to modernize the budget, and also on the Supreme Audit Institution. I won't spend too much time here because I know that we are running out of time, but just wanted again to confirm these elements. Thank you very much.
raise an issue of why we have to depend on external sources that much. I think that is about a funding gap. I think that Jerry also mentioned that. And why do we have a funding gap? It's only that a lot of the countries do deficit financing. We do deficit budgets such that our requirements, what we need to spend, is way beyond what we are doing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, sure. So I think that my good friend from Namibia will also bring his country's perspective to the topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. The question of planning, what the country needs, can this be financed internally or externally? If externally, that's where now the global funding will come in. Firstly, you have to identify what you need as a country and the resources that you as a country can produce, that is financial resources. In Namibia, we have what we call the three institutions come together and make some projections of the financial resources that will be generated within the country. This is the Bank of Namibia, the National Planning Commission, the Minister of Finance, as well as the entity that is officially responsible for official statistics, that is the Namibia Statistics Agency. These are macroeconomic working groups where they sit together and make a projection on what revenue will be collected within before we go out to source funds that will cover the gap. And then after these resources is being projected, then now comes the budgeting. The budgeting of Namibia takes several steps. It's not like Minister of Finance and National Planning Commission, we just sit and then we start budgeting. No. Maybe let me just dwell much on the capital projects. There we have the planning that starts bottom up and up bottom, those two approaches. The bottom up approaches, it starts with the grassroots people where they identify themselves, their needs, and then they put forth the needs which needs to be catered for during budgeting. And then it goes all the way to the line ministry. It comes to the National Planning Commission in form of a project that needs to be funded. Then National Planning Commission, together with the Minister of Finance, we sit, we assess the viability of this project, and then funds are allocated. That is in brief. Mr. Chair, the planning in Namibia, all these projects that I'm alluding to, they have to conform to the National Development Plan. Like now we are busy with our 60th National Development Plan because this is the beacon that we are looking at to propel the country's economic growth. I think in short, Mr. Chair, I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. I think so. We've had two country perspectives. Now, there's this issue of counterpart funding, which I would like to throw to Mr. Diallo. If you are coming in to help a country, you are asking that there should be a counterpart funding to what you are bringing in. In the event of a country not being able to provide that, what happens? So that's the question I would like to throw to Mr. Diallo. Is he on board? Mr. Presenter. Hello. Mr. Diallo, is he hearing me? Can he hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so that's your question, please.
Thank you very much for the question, and thank you very much for the question. So allow me maybe just to remind why we are having this counterpart financing. Really, the idea is to make sure that our funding is not replacing whatever budget that the country is putting in place. The idea is really to complement, as you correctly said in the beginning. We are in an ideal situation should be relying on your national strategic plans so that we come as a gap filler. But sadly, in some countries, what happens is that whenever we come, then in some cases the governments disappear. So this is really why we are insisting, making sure that we have this counterpart funding. So to directly respond to your point, when a country is not able to meet the counterpart financing, we also take into account different elements, including the fiscal pressure the country is under, and whether or not the country, is really struggling to meet that commitment. And also, we have, whenever when we can't rely on the Ministry of Finance, for example, to track those expenses. And also, maybe just to say that from the beginning, whenever we set a percentage of co-financing requirement, we also make sure that it's really realistic. So it's a really smart a target that we are putting here in place. And then when it's not, when the country is not meeting it, in some cases we will have to put in place what we call the 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 allocation reduction. But to be honest, we have, if I remember, within my 8 years at the Global Fund, only applied that twice in 2 cases where really, we did not have any kind of support or even willingness from the country to show that they have met this counterpart financing. But really, we take into account the country context and we support the country.
All right, thank you very much. You have a, okay, sure.
Thank you. If I share the experience of Rwanda on this question, how do we secure, how to prioritize the government counterpart? The national planning, budgeting, and the M&E framework of Rwanda has been developed in such a way the planning informs the budgeting, while the budgeting informs the performance of the milestone to reach. So during the budgeting and the planning process, our planning is, of course, our annual plan is down upward, use that approach. But there is a committee that is called Public Investment Committee. At the local government also we have what we call Local Government Project Committee. With that committees, during the planning and the budgeting process, before any project or any development intervention appears on the budget law, it has first of all to be these committees. During the selection process, there are prioritization criteria. Among them, the counterpart is the first one. We have first of all to secure the counterpart for externally funded projects.
Thank you very much. You also want to add your perspective.
Thank you, Chair. In the case of Namibia, let me just speak more especially in the health sector. Yes, especially the global fund, they do help a lot with their projects, but these are not done separately from the priorities of what the country needs. So whatever external funding that comes into the country, it has to conform to the priorities of the country. Yesterday, in one of the sessions, I think there was a question that was posed as to these external fundings, they come with stringence. In the case of Namibia, the stringence, they might be there, but conformity to the priorities of the country takes the center stage. What I mean is, these external fundings, they have to conform to what the country needs. The gap in terms of what the country has already planned. Therefore, we have in the National Planning Commission the department that looks in a development partners cooperation. This development partners cooperation does mobilize resources and sits with these development partners, tell them the priorities of the country. Then they choose in which sector they want to come and help, be it in education, in health, in environmental affairs, and so on and so forth. Therefore, with Namibia, they are being controlled as per the country's needs. Even when we come to budgeting, in our budget book, we'll indicate to say these are funds that are coming from external sources. And these are funds that are from within internal sources. Therefore, it's clearly distinct. We can tell. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, I would like to ask the audience if you have any question or contribution. Thank you very much.
Chair,
Thank you very much.
We'll take two more questions, and if technical team, you can assist us. If there are any questions from Nyasa, we would also like to take from there. Karibu.
So my name is Julius from Kenya. We have this conversation around odious debt across various parts of Africa. And it has been a menace because we find that, we've listened to all these, processes that are done to ensure that whatever country requires is, taken into consideration. What does organizations like Global Fund do to ensure that this problem of odious debt is not a conversation that should go on?
Thank you. Karibu.
Thank you very much. I don't have a question. I have a comment on the use of country systems and the submission and the improvements that have been made by Global Fund in using a country's PFM system. And as we looked at yesterday, the PEFA, if you have a strategic allocation of resources, efficient service delivery, and fiscal discipline, and you have followed through and strengthened your PFM system, then the Global Fund comes and utilizes those systems based on your priorities and on your country planning and country goals. So that's a significant change as compared to 15 years ago when Global Fund was just providing their templates, what they are looking for, how we should report, and there was no interaction with the Ministry of Finance and the Accountant Generals. So I've seen a significant change and improvement over the years. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any question? Yeah, seems there are no questions.
Chair, yes, just want to do one. I think I heard somebody saying, reacting to the. Okay.
I think my question is just, thank you once again this morning. My question is just a general question to all of us. I hear in most instances, I'm coming from a development space, I hear in most instances, we talk about donor stringent, donor conditions. What exactly are these? Maybe we should have an opportunity to unpack them, because they look like they are a stumbling block in our development path. So if they are not discussed, if they are not debated on, if they are not understood, then this conversation will continue. Thank you.
Well, my take on this is that if the external partners are strict, it's only because they are using the members' funds. You know, they are applying the members' funds to help other countries to actually manage their budgets, and they definitely need to be strict on this, because where a budget is not planned properly or applied properly, definitely the fund is not going to achieve the purpose for which it is released. And so it's important they do that. But then the question is, why are we accumulating arrears in a lot of the countries in Africa? Well, I think that most of the big tickets expenditure we make, which are the social intervention tickets issues, the kind of funding that we need for them, we don't have them. And our internal resource mobilization is way below. I mean, it's woefully inadequate. Why are we not being able to mobilize enough so that we can be able to reduce our dependency on external funding? That's a question that each country has to answer. Thank you very much for your audience. Thank you.
But I know we'll catch up to it. So without further ado, we're now going on to the zawadi ya pekee nitaitunza